I am the Doctor, this is my section. Earth is under my protection. Planet of birth is Gallifrey. I've got 2 hearts, your life is saved. Run into the Master, Raw Missy. Come on, Alonzo. Alonzi. I am a Time Lord. No, I'm not rich. 12 bodies a man. Now it's time for a switch. Don't look like that. I'm in great health. You were expecting someone else. Regeneration. Oh, such fun. When I say run, run, run. What's up, my boy? Peace and sanity. Sorry, mustache. Reverse the polarity. Sometimes I'm north, but always a limey. Wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey. Jump in the TARDIS, go for a ride. It's bigger on the inside. Exploring all of time and space. Oh, what's that? Exterminate.
Cyberman, a Daleks, maybe.
Would you like a jelly baby? Time's ticking, we'd best go. A new adventure, Geronimo! I am fantastic, so are you. Best come with me, I'm Doctor Who. Welcome to a brand new episode of D4WH. I am one of your hosts, I'm Adam O'Sullivan. Joining me as always, she's neither quiet nor dead, it's Nicchia Shoot.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Look, I'm not too bad considering I probably got up about half an hour ago.
Oh yes, when we got here you were brushing your teeth.
Yeah, you caught me in my little personal
Hygiene.
hygiene habits. It's good to know, but that people that you podcast with clean their teeth.
Yeah. Like that famous Dickens quote, our guest today can be described as, it was the best of times, it was the blurst of times, you stupid monkey, comedian, GM, and reality TV star. Please welcome Jimmy Reilly.
Thank you.
Jimmy, do you want to go through your history with Doctor Who?
Sure. I mean, I can talk a little bit about it. I grew up in the 80s when it was being shown on ABC all of the time. Before I really knew about Doctor Who, my favourite character was K9 because robotic dog. Who doesn't?
Definitely.
Who doesn't want that? They've tried that, haven't they? You can buy like a pet pound thing that just goes roof, but doesn't work.
The little
It's
robotic
not K9.
dogs. Yeah.
Well, it's actually interesting because my original British sci-fi experience was Red Dwarf.
Same.
And they had the Scudders there. And my first experience with K9 wasn't that it was a robotic dog. It was a Scudder without a head. And it was like, oh, what's the Scudder doing? Why is the Scudder talking? Oh, this is a really interesting thing about a magic man. And I can't even remember who the doctor was that had K9 at that particular time.
That would have to be Tom Baker. I think he was...
Yeah, it would have had to
He
have
would have
been.
been the last one, wasn't he?
I don't know.
Why am I looking
Peter
at Adam?
Davidson didn't have K9?
No, or a sonic screwdriver.
Oh,
He did have Chameleon, who was a bit shit and stayed upstairs a lot in the TARDIS because he couldn't move around much.
My first real memory of Doctor Who, it was, I've since remembered that it was Sylvester McCoy and that someone did actually ask, what is your name, Doctor? And he just gave this sly wink and he had the hat and it cuts to the end credits. So it might have been the transformation episode. I'm not sure, but it wasn't until the new series aired. And what had happened was they started airing the old classic series in the afternoon.
I remember that. We used to sit and watch it.
Yeah, so there was the...
They went right back to the beginning, didn't they?
Yeah, so you got the original with the two teachers and his granddaughter.
That's how Matt Ford watched it on the ABC and he said it started from the
That's
start.
right.
Yeah.
The Decent.
The
Call him the
Decent. Yeah,
Decent.
yeah.
I slipped in and out while that was on, but I fell in love with Peter Davidson. And he's always...
And then you saw him on Doctor Who and you're like, oh, actually... He's a pretty good actor too.
Yeah, well, I mean, my parents used to joke that he's not the Doctor, he's Tristan.
From All Creatures, Great and Small.
Great and Small, which was another sitcom that he did before he was Doctor Who. And the contrast of the characters between Tristan, who is this vet, pretty much.
It was kind of like a drama, like a country practice sort of.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
If it
You're
was
too young for
If it was on
country
Netflix,
practice.
I'm sure my mum would watch it.
Yeah, but it was very different to see, particularly in contrast, because he was the fifth Doctor and the fourth Doctor was, of course,
Tom Baker.
Yeah, and having that contrast between this very different, subtle style.
He was very human.
Yeah. The big thing for me was always the celery stick. He always carried the celery stick, and the answer for this, whenever he was asked, was just in case. And I love that as a character. It's sort of like that's sort of emblematic of what I think about when I think of Doctor Who. The Doctor is always stumbling into stupid adventures and is always prepared and is always very, very happy to be surprised and sort of learn a new thing. And that's sort of the pickup from that. And of course, while that was happening, I think we got through Eccleston and then Tennant. And it wasn't really until season 4 of the new series with Tennant, with Silence in the Library and all of that I really fell in love again.
Yeah.
That was
with,
a really good season.
It was a
with
good
what,
season.
what he could do.
The
'cause
highest rated season of the new series.
That's not surprising. It's the best one.
The Doctor and Donna, yeah.
Yeah, Doctor and Donna, and also stuff like learning about the Ood and and that sort of stuff, and the Vashta Narada, who are still to this day my favorite Doctor Who monster.
Oh, really?
That's
Because it's a good
interesting.
idea. I always thought it was such a good idea.
I love that, and I love
Alex Kingston.
Alex
River.
Kingston,
Oh, yes,
River
River
Song.
Song, yeah.
Yeah.
That is such a great concept
Yeah.
that I'm amazed that it hasn't happened before.
Just plays with time travel so well.
Yeah, and I
Like,
mean-
oh, I'm meeting you before we've actually met.
Seems like something that should have happened to the
Yeah,
Doctor
definitely.
long ago,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's how you can tell it's a great idea for a character. It's like, why hasn't this been a character before? And I love Alex Kingston. I've loved her.
Oh, she's
Me too.
Everything. She's perfect for that role, and I have opinions about what happened later down the line. I don't know how spoiler conscious we are.
Everyone's a Whovian here. So.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a lot of issues with new series and how they treat companions and
You
how.
mean the current season or the leading
No,
up
I
to?
mean leading up to
Or
it.
do you mean like Amy and Clara?
Amy, I love. I love Amy Pond. I love her so much, particularly because at that point they started doing it right again. Because I blame the movie. I blame the movie a lot for what they did to the companion as a character.
Make them a love interest.
Yeah, well, that's how it started.
yeah.
And then, of course, you've got our good friend Rose Tyler, who is look.
We'll be discussing today.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
I had a lot of opinions to Rose towards the end of her tenure. I liked her to start with. So it was interesting to watch her now after I gotten to that point where I was like, I'm over Rose. It's interesting to go back and watch her right from the beginning. I found it really
Yeah,
interesting.
it is interesting. I loved Rose. From the moment I started watching Doctor Who, I loved Rose. I was fully still into Rose when they teased her coming back.
I had nothing against Rose. The love was a bit too much. Like the Alex
yeah.
Kingston and Matt Smith, that worked as a love story because it wasn't a love story, and yet it was. It was more of a Doctor Who love story.
It's hard to say because one of the things with the companions is that they're supposed to be very side to the story. They're our point of view characters.
Yeah,
and when
exactly.
you have 3 or 4 in a row that want to make out with the Doctor,
Yeah,
what do you think
yeah.
the producers are trying to tell us there?
Yeah.
They want to make out with the Doctor.
No, they want us to make out with the
The
Doctor.
Doctor, yeah.
And I mean that's fine if that's the story that we're going with here. But I actually think that Rose got really interesting in the 4th season when she came back, and we'll discuss why I think when we
Yeah,
go through the
go
episode.
through
All right,
the
well, let's
episode.
get in. Let's start as we always do with Doctor Who news.
Yay!
John Barrowman is a fan favourite ever since starring as Captain Jack in Eccleston's season of Doctor Who.
When's he coming back? Do you know?
Before moving on to Torchwood, well, in amongst being on Arrow, The Flash, and Legends of Tomorrow, and filling in as host of ITV's This Morning programme, Big Finish have managed to find some time in their schedule to get him to record some more audio plays.
Yay!
The Lives of Captain Jack Volume 2 will be released in June, probably sometime around the release of this episode, and will feature 3 different stories.
Oh.
Driving Miss Wells will feature newsreader Trinity Wells, who on the Doctor Who show has reported about alien invasions, stolen planets, and burning skies. But somewhere along the way, she stopped believing in what she reported, thinking it fake news.
Oh no.
It might be up to her mysterious new chauffeur to try and convince her otherwise.
Oh. So it's not Jack in Torchwood, it's just Jack.
It's just Jack being a time agent,
Meandering
basically, yeah.
around, yep.
In the second story, What Have I Done?, Captain Jack must try and save the life of a wounded soldier in the middle of World War I. And last but not least, the story that is the most exciting, Captain Jack is forced to take on the mantle of the Doctor after Colin Baker's 6th Doctor is incapacitated. Is the universe ready for a whole new kind of Doctor?
Oh, come on, I'd have to listen to that. That would be cool.
You should see the
as-
promotional images. It's him wearing the 6th Doctor's multicolored coat.
Really?
Yeah.
And you know what? He would make it look good.
He's really posing for the camera. It's great.
That's exactly what you should be doing with Jack Harkness. He's exactly the type of character that you're like, okay. That's why I love Torchwood and why I love, to a lesser extent, the Sarah Jane Chronicles.
Adventures, yeah.
Oh, I love the Sarah Jane Adventures because I loved Sarah Jane.
The whole idea there of going around the Doctor Who universe and showing things as to like different characters' point of view as like those are some of the best episodes in the new series is where the Doctor is hardly featured. Is just the universe is happening around the Doctor.
Jimmy loves loving monsters, do you? There's no Doctor in that one.
Blink is as a Doctor Who line.
That's when you do it well.
That's exactly what you should be doing is you've got this great immortal character. I want to know what Captain Jack does during his
He
day.
wakes up, dies, has breakfast, dies.
I would like to see what the companions do like the day after.
Well, I mean, that was part of what Torchwood was all about, wasn't it? Was that all of them were people who interacted with the Doctor in some degree. Like they knew who the Doctor was and had formed this clique. Essentially, there's no way to get out of being a Doctor's companion without being a giant ball of trauma.
Yeah.
And we're going to get to that, particularly in this episode.
Yeah, no one ever has like a giant party where they're like, oh my God, I'm going to leave the Doctor. Oh my God, I'm so happy.
Well, I mean, the scene for me is, I can't remember if it's when David Tennant is dying or if it was just after, where he's going around and he's saying,
saying goodbye to his
goodbye to
companions.
everyone. And you've got Martha and Mickey, one together, and that's wrong.
Yes.
Mickey knew the Doctor for a grand total of like 4 or 5 hours. And suddenly
But he travelled with him.
Yeah, but like comparatively speaking,
Oh,
you know, you've got Rose who's been the Doctor for 2 years, the Martha for a whole year. Donna.
The funniest thing about Mickey to me is that his girlfriend basically disappears with this other man. Then she keeps coming back and he's like, yeah, no, I'm over you. And they're like, do you want to come travel with me and the man who took me away from you?
Yeah.
And he's like, okay,
Yeah.
let's do that. And he just keeps doing that. And then he gets left again. And then he's like, okay, let's go traveling again.
But I mean, Rory does that too. He goes travelling with the man who took his wife to be on the night before their
but
wedding.
at least they're getting married. At
Well,
least he
that's
knows that
true.
he like Billy, when he comes back and he's like, do you still love me? She's like, anyway, the Doctor's waiting. I gotta go. Bye.
Of course I love you, but I got to go.
Hey, Adam, I've only met you for half an hour, but, do you want to come traveling with me?
I knew this was a personal problem.
No, Adam is the name of the character from Dalek that she, meets for half an hour, and then she's like, do you want to come traveling?
Oh, I thought you were talking about yourself now.
Oh, I was, but
It's always about you.
is it? When is it not?
A comedian with a podcast that's all about them. This is a brand new development.
When did this phenomenon start?
Today we are talking about The Unquiet Dead, A Psychologist Treats Spirit Possession, a 1995 book by Dr. Edith Flore. No, our episode today is The Unquiet Dead, Season 1, Episode 3.
Oh my God! I wondered where you were going with that. I'm thinking, all right, he's had an aneurysm. We'll just let him go for a while.
This episode of Doctor Who was written by Mark Gatiss and directed by Eurus Lynn. Originally aired on the BBC on Saturday, April the 9th, 2005.
Okay, so this was after Billie Piper's singing career.
Yes, that's
Oh
correct.
yeah. She was like 15 or so when she was singing, and she was 20 odd. She's supposed to be 19.
But when she was
in this,
announced
but-
as the companion, they thought it was like stunt casting.
Oh yeah, people were so cross. She can act.
Yeah, definitely.
She's a much better actor than she's a
She
singer.
always wanted to be an
Yeah.
actor, but she only became a pop star because that's what they offered her. Here you go, here's some songs, sing them. She's like, okay, well, I'll be an actor eventually.
Yeah, foot in
Yeah.
the door. Like
Yeah,
I
essentially.
want to point out that I don't begrudge her singing career. When you get that opportunity, you say yes to it.
Oh, of course you do. Or you
And
regret
to
it
be
all your
fair,
life.
if she decided to do a concert where she did her bangers like Honey to the Bee and the other one.
Because we want you.
Because we want to, yes.
People
I
would
would
go-
at least consider buying a ticket.
Yeah, listen, I bought her autobiography and she's like 12.
Oh my God.
Well, she's not 12.
Surprising she wrote an autobiography before her singing career. Yeah. I'm going to be famous one day. I'm going to write my biography.
But I found it really interesting. I thought, how could somebody so young have an interesting biography? But I read it.
Oh, well, she's been through some shit.
Yeah, she's a lot more than you realise.
Her first husband was a monster.
They're still friends, aren't they?
Yeah, I think so. I
Yeah,
don't know.
he's a lot older than her. I know that. Then she married the Fox guy from Lewis, Lawrence Fox. I love him.
He's half man, half fox.
Yes, and now she's had babies with him, and now she's with another guy, so they got divorced.
Jesus. And what animal is he bred with?
Yeah, bear.
He's the bear guy.
I don't know.
He likes giant
I don't
gay
know
men.
who he is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hairy gay men.
Doctor Who is doing so much for sexual and relationship politics, always has been, and good on you, Billy.
Yeah, and I put that down to Captain Jack, who started
Yes.
the trend.
And the Forest of Cheam.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I like to give them wood.
She's a bit beautiful. Anyway.
Let's start with a short synopsis. Noted psychologist Dr. Edith Flore explains how to detect spirit possession in yourself
Wrong
and
one
others.
again.
Adam.
Wrong one
How to
again.
protect yourself from entities.
Adam.
How to release
Adam.
your home from displaced
No.
spirits.
Adam.
You can't
and how
stop
to
him.
perform a dispossession.
Are we going to do one during the podcast?
A seance.
I think I'm possessed.
Okay,
I've
yeah.
been quite sick. I've had a virus. So maybe
Oh, yeah,
I'm
so
possessed.
it must be ghosts.
Has to be.
Pretty sure it's the devil.
I love that Charles Dickens is the only one who's like, there has to be a scientific explanation. And they're like, nope, it's ghosts, bitch. The dead are rising in Cardiff, and it's up to the Doctor and Rose, with a little bit of help from Charles Dickens, to find out what's going on. How can they stop gas-based aliens, the Gelth, who want to use our
Pity
dead
the
bodies
Gelth.
as vessels?
Okay.
Pity the Gelth. Clairvoyant and funeral parlour maid Gwyneth may be the only way to send the aliens back through the space-time rift which runs through Cardiff.
In order to prepare for the podcast, I'm professional. I went and watched the episode.
Oh my God, no one ever does that otherwise.
The
do they?
requirement for being on the podcast, they're fantastic.
Yeah, the bare minimum. I was really interested in
Were
the
you sober while watching it?
Yes.
Oh, well,
Yes,
then, top of the class.
I was really interested in the idea of Doctor Who fighting ghosts because that is a really, really interesting idea. Because it's like, you know, the science versus technology, and we've got the horror side. That's the first time in
Yeah.
the new series, I think, that they actually went with sort of a horror style story.
Because the old one, we had the vampires with Sylvester McCoy, but
Yes.
they weren't really vampires.
Hemivores.
Hemivores, that's it. Hemivores.
They eat blood. That makes them not vampires.
They're just an alien race who like blood.
Yeah, that's right. No, they were future humans.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, anyway.
That's exactly my point. Not ghosts, just gas-based aliens.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Causing a zombie apocalypse.
So were you disappointed?
I've been watching Doctor Who enough to know that there's always going to be a, air quotes, scientific
Yeah.
explanation, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, I saw them when it turns out that Shakespeare's words have the same properties as physics.
Yeah.
Yeah. But everything's explained. You always know it's always going to be like an alien. Have you seen the new series with Jodie Whittaker?
I have not.
Got to watch
There's
it.
an
it's great.
episode called Arachnids in the UK where there's these giant spiders everywhere, and you think, oh, they must be alien spiders. No, it turns out
A scientist
a
was
scientist
making them bigger.
is experimenting on spiders, making them bigger and live longer, and then they're dumping the waste with a company that just dumps it underneath a hotel. So there's no alien explanation. It's like it's our own science.
Well, I mean, okay, one, I love that. Two, who looks at...
You want a giant spider
I-
wandering around your backyard.
I'm shivering just from the thought.
From a storyline point of view, I love that
Oh,
Doctor
okay.
Who had a villain that wasn't an alien.
Okay, all right.
Who looks at a spider and thinks, you know what would be more awesome? If this thing was big enough to destroy a building.
Well, the explanation was they were
And it
trying to
lived
make bigger
longer.
web, so the web would be bigger.
Oh, so that they could use it for
use it.
fabric.
Yeah.
This is the other thing. Like, Doctor Who is not solely to blame for this, but every science fiction movie with an alien or a creature in it, we are always using that creature to try and do something that we can do more effectively. With Alien, it's a walking gun. Who looks at a gun and thinks, if this walked, it would be much easier to control.
This creature that
and-
has only evolved to kill us.
I would
is like,
think the
what can
NRA does that
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
a lot.
Okay, fair.
Also, One Nation.
Yeah.
How can
One
I get money
Nation,
from
yeah.
this walking gun? Am I right, guys? We start with a young man at a funeral parlour looking over his recently deceased grandmama. I say recently, but assume she's ready for showing, what with her having been in a coffin and all.
Yeah.
Probably been embalmed and everything.
Well, maybe. Oh, no, haven't you ever been to a showing? That's kind of what they look like.
Yeah, but they...
Yeah,
in
but-
modern day, they sort of embalm them.
So the
they do.
showing shouldn't happen minutes after death. It's
Yeah.
the type of thing that you spend hours
Yeah.
doing makeup and prepare.
Also, he's the only one there, so it's not like it's the showing.
It's just him coming to see Granny.
Yeah.
The details were unimportant to me. The fact fact that he was there and his grandmother tried to strangle him amused me no end.
Gabriel Sneed, the operator of the funeral home, offers his condolences to the young man before offering him some space. Grandmama's face starts to glow and she reaches out to attack her grieving relative. However, when Sneed returns to the room, he acts as if this scene of zombie attack is an inconvenience and he tries to get Grandmama to stay in her coffin.
Let's just talk for a second. Has there ever been anyone who is even a half-decent person named Sneed?
No, as soon as you've got your last name Sneed, your personality's set, isn't it? You are going to be a dick.
People don't usually remember, but Mother Teresa's last name was Sneed. No, I don't know.
Teresa Sneed.
Teresa Sneed.
Oh, that's
I'm a be a nun.
I think at this point, I can't remember if it is here or later on we get introduced to the other character. Is this when we start hearing the terrible Welsh accents?
I don't know. I thought it was filmed in Wales, so...
Well, Eve Miles is Welsh, so
Yeah.
she's actually got a Welsh accent.
Gwen
Yeah.
with this.
But Sneed does not.
Yeah.
Absolutely does
Yeah,
not.
so...
You can be forgiven for basically forgetting that they're in Wales, except
Yes.
when they mention that they're in Wales.
Yes.
They're disappointed about being
In
in
Cardiff. Yeah.
Like Sneed has, every now and again he'll Welsh up a word and you're like, oh,
That's-
that's right. But Eve Miles is actually Welsh.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
is.
Grandmama busts out and starts wandering the streets of 1869 Cardiff as the opening credits begin.
Got things to do. I mean, you can't let death stop you
She's
sometimes.
got to see the great, great man.
Yeah, or if you've got to get to the shops or whatever it is.
Oh, before I died, I was about to duck down to the shop.
Yeah, because we're out of toilet duck.
I really liked the theme song. Like, at this point, they're still tooling around with it, and it doesn't
Yeah.
have that awesome violin line, but it is very much reminiscent. It's synthy.
Yeah.
It's got that familiar Doctor Who synth melody that's
getting you
going
ready.
through. And it's one of the purest distillations from the new series of the theme song. Where I remember first hearing the theme song and thinking, okay, you're doing this right. You are taking this new Doctor Who reboot very seriously,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm here for it.
Who are you going to call? The Doctor!
Yay!
In the TARDIS, Christopher Eccleston's Ninth Doctor is trying to show companion Rose Tyler how to fly the TARDIS, I assume?
The TARDIS as a character, I love. She's just a broken down old jalopy that only the Doctor has like Biff Tannen's car in Back to the Future. Only he can start it. He's got Rose there saying, hold these two things down
Yeah.
and it'll be fine. And she's very confused about how the spaceship is going to work. And I think this episode was very good at foreshadowing stuff that was going to happen.
Yeah,
definitely,
yeah, that's
yeah, yeah.
true. When you know what's happening, and
Yeah.
you go back and watch it, you go,
And
okay.
it's impossible to tell how much they actually knew was going to happen. They're definitely planting some seeds. That scene in particular was like, okay, we're doing the TARDIS is old bit, but that would eventually build to it takes 5 people to actually fly the TARDIS properly.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really good. Adam always says, well, and then the Doctor just happens to turn up. Whereas I believe the TARDIS makes the decision of where the Doctor needs to be and drops him there.
Well, it tells him they're in Naples in 1860, and then he, isn't
Yeah.
at all.
I don't know what the fashion was like in Naples in the 1960s, but
1860s.
1860s. But Billy Piper puts on an outfit, a very cleavagey outfit, by the way.
I do believe they
It
were
was-
very cleavagey
It
in
was
those days.
it was a late 2000s or mid 2000s, yeah.
But I think Napoleon's time, women showed nipple.
I would believe that.
Well, I can't wait for that Doctor Who episode. That's going to be great.
They also
Perhaps we won't go there.
do we know at this point that it's near Christmas?
They constantly say it's Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve in Naples or Christmas
Yeah,
Eve?
yeah, he says
yeah.
That's where
Christmas
they
Eve
were
in
headed
Naples,
for.
Yeah.
Christmas Eve in Naples. They end up
Yeah.
Christmas Eve.
When they say Naples, I was expecting it to be like warm, tropical, and they get out and it's snowing,
Yeah.
and no one bats an eyelid. I was like, oh, Naples must have snow then.
Yeah, very confused by that. But
Oh,
also,
it's true. Yeah, I didn't
also
think about that.
the outfit that Rose is wearing, very 1890s Britain. And that's, I get it, that's the outfit that she needs to be wearing for the entire
Yeah.
show. But that's weird that the Doctor sent her off to go and find an outfit to wear.
I love his directions past the bins.
Yeah, who empties the bins on the TARDIS?
When does he put them out? Like, when's bin night?
When's
for the
midnight?
TARDIS?
He just goes into a different universe and is like, well, there you go, bins, off you go.
Yeah, that's exactly my thought, is that he doesn't actually need to. They're just portals to another dimension that he throws
But
trash
then they
into.
turn
Trash
into
dimension.
like the Star Trek movie Voyager, and they come back and they're like, we are the trash that you dump.
Yes.
Like, oh, God.
Early 90s environmentalism.
It's a lot of plastic here.
They've been to the future to see the destruction of Earth, so he's decided they shall go back to the past this time. The 1860s, as we said. The Doctor tells Rose to go and get changed. Oh, yeah, we've already done that.
I like the fact that what he changes his jumper. Is that it?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think
The
that
jumper.
I actually think they do address this in a future episode with Eccleston. When he's with Mickey, actually. Okay, Mick, what do you think they're going to do when they see a big blue box that they've never seen before in the middle of the road? They're just going to keep walking because strange things happen and people ignore them every day. And I kind of think that justifies the Doctor's outfit choice here.
Yeah, he changes his jumper. He makes no effort.
Well, the Doctor doesn't get changed, thus showing the gender inequality between women who have to dress up, much like Carl Stefanovic did when he wore the same suit every day for a year on the Today Show.
I know, and no one noticed, but they criticised anything.
Yeah.
Lisa will,
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Thank you, world.
And Rose is all dressed for the occasion. The Doctor tells her that she looks beautiful considering she's human.
That last bit, he catches himself when he says that. I didn't pick that up the first time. He says, oh, you look beautiful. For a human.
Yeah.
It's like he's trying to cover up his...
Oh, I was going to say, it's a strange thing for him to say considering he's only 2 incarnations from running around kissing any bipedal female humanoid he can get into the TARDIS.
Yeah, no, I think that that's a foreshadowing that he's quite hot for her.
Ah, okay. All right.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he can't let that know because toxic masculinity, if you dare show feelings, you will be destroyed,
Yes, yeah,
even if you're a 902
Yeah.
year old space alien in a box.
I also think if you're going to live for, however many generations or regenerations that you're going to live for, and you're going out, you're in love with someone who's going to live for 10 minutes in your lifespan.
Yeah, it's sort of
It's a bit hard.
it's a
like
pet
having
situation.
It's like having a pet.
Oh, I was going to say, if you're 900 years old, you get to the point where you're just like walking around being like, you're hot, you're hot, you're hot. Look, if any of you are interested, just hit me up. All right, let's go do this thing.
I think I remember how. The Doctor dances. We did have a whole episode of
How the Doctor furks. Back in the funeral parlour, Gwyneth has been tending the stables but is told by Sneed to harness up the horse again because, as he puts it, the stiffs are getting lively again. That's where the weird accents come in.
Okay.
Which sounds like the description of an old folks' home for porn stars. Just had to get that joke in.
Worth it. How many times do we hear her name throughout the entire episode?
Gwyneth.
Because
he says it quite often.
Yeah.
I was doing some checks and it was only, maybe it's just because, again, I was having problems with the accent and I tuned a lot of his voice out. Because it wasn't until one that I heard Rose say it that I caught on to what her name was.
Oh, okay.
And that was, I think, once.
Oh, really? No, I thought she said it. She calls him Gwen.
He definitely says it in the first scene. He
Okay.
goes, Gwyneth, help me.
He does call her just girl.
Girl.
Yeah.
Girl and she get thrown around a lot. And it was very distracting for me because she's a major character. And again, maybe it's because I couldn't stand the goddamn accent.
A couple of times later in the episode, where they kind of try and make Sneed to be like a browbeaten guy who's just like, well, this is the situation I've been given. And it's like, no, you're a goddamn monster.
Yeah, he is a monster.
He's a bad man, isn't
People
he?
are getting killed in your funeral parlour and you are not doing anything.
Closed down the funeral parlour, relocated.
Well, he goes, oh, it's good for business. Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, because you can charge them twice for a funeral. You goddamn fake Welsh monster.
You could just get the whole family in for the viewing and then have them all killed. and
Except
then-
for you have to leave one because one has to pay for the funeral.
Oh, true.
He ended up killing Mr. Redplave. The
Grandmama kills him.
Yeah, but he's
Well, he-
just like whatever witnesses we have to it.
Oh, yeah, and he
goes and kills
kidnaps
them.
Rose.
Wants to kill her.
And gives her a feel up.
Oh, yeah.
She's
Yes.
I love
That-
I
that
love
did-
that was a throwaway joke that wouldn't fly this day and age.
well, it still would, but we would have burnt him at the stake by now.
It wouldn't have been a throwaway joke, is
No.
what I'm saying.
No,
in this day and age.
it would have actually been addressed and we would, I would hope that it would have been addressed and that we would have actually been able to get some comeuppance for that. But
in the mid-2000s, it was just like, you felt me up, and we're all supposed to go, whoa, yuck, what a monster.
No, I do not think we were supposed to laugh at that. I do not think we were supposed to laugh at
really?
that. No, I think that...
I'm pretty sure we were. Well, I laughed.
So did I.
I think that what we was like, again, like in case you weren't clear that the guy named Sneed,
Yeah.
who handles the dead bodies coming back to life and chloroformed a girl, in case you didn't think he was a monster, he also felt Billy Piper up.
Yeah.
I felt like the way that Billy Piper delivers that line is like, you're bad because of this, oh, and you also did this, you know?
Yeah.
It's the way she delivers the line.
Yeah.
Gwyneth is played by Eve Miles, who will later go on to play Gwen Cooper on the spin-off show Torchwood.
I loved Gwen Cooper.
Oh, she's great. She's
And
fantastic.
I think Eve Miles is really good because she does stand out. Even watching it
definitely,
again,
yeah.
she stands out in the episode. You know, it would have been easy to not stand out in everything going on. But you, you really
we meet
feel
Sneed
for Gwen.
first, but she is basically the main character from
Yes.
this time period.
She is.
Gwyneth states that's enough now, and the two act as if the dead rising and walking around is some sort of massive hassle instead of a scientific marvel. They're
Yes.
just inconvenienced by the dead, you know?
I mean, but he runs a funeral home. Like, I can absolutely see how someone whose business is burning dead bodies or burying dead bodies or putting dead bodies on display.
Yeah, you should burn dead bodies because I just watched Game of Thrones. So burn, baby, burn.
Burn, baby, burn.
It's a Dr. Inferno.
Sneed, baby, Sneed.
I can absolutely see why someone's livelihood would be a scientific miracle, could just be an inconvenience to them. And I actually
But
really...
surely he doesn't want the dead to come back to life, you know? Like, he doesn't want them walking around.
Exactly. The idea that he's just like, ugh, I'm so tired of this. This is ruining my day. Makes a lot of sense because, of course, you know, we're in the 1800s. His job is taking care of dead people, and suddenly dead people aren't a problem anymore. What's he gonna do?
It's like Death Becomes Her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
I get it now. I would have thought like the dead rising would be, you know, you could explain that away. But when they start killing and he's just like, oh, not again.
Yeah.
It's like, you could be killed at any moment. And he says he lives there too. Like he lives in the house where the dead could rise, crawl up to his bed and just snap his
Yeah,
neck.
you would move.
Or at least get an apartment like across the way or something.
That's still my very favourite line ever from Doctor Who, which is, where is the most activity? In the morgue. No chance you were going to say the gazebo. It's still my favourite line.
It's the third episode and they're already making meta comments. It's fantastic. They're taking our job away from us.
They are.
They could start their own podcast.
Don't tell them that. David Tennant already did that.
Yeah. Well, at least he doesn't talk about Doctor Who very much. Sneed and Gwyneth are having trouble finding Grandmama, so he asks her to use the sight. So Gwyneth digs deep within her and goes, "Sword of omens, give me sight beyond sight.
God.
I am the power.
Thunder, 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 thundercats. Oh!
Oh my God, Thundercats.
Thundercats are on the loose."
Oh my God.
Who's let him out this morning?
Oh.
Hey,
That's
man.
what I thought when he
Look.
goes, "You've got the sate."
Look,
Sorry, that's
it's
my
Satur-
dodgy Welsh accent.
It's Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And I could be watching She-Ra right now. So
I thought you were going to say Saturday morning Disney.
I
I
could
grew up on
also
Saturday
be
night
watching
morning Disney.
Saturday morning Disney. Again, something really interesting that, spoilers for this episode, turns out to be completely useless. A psychic in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Because again, we touch on it and the idea that, so the scene where we've got Rose and Gwen in the kitchen,
Yeah.
and she accidentally uses her psychic powers and sees visions of the future and completely freaks the hell out.
Yeah.
That's a brilliant Doctor Who scene. That's exactly what I expect someone with psychic powers interacting with a companion of the Doctor from another time would be doing. And that's not something that gets explored very much at all in...
Oh yeah, the Doctor doesn't even bring it up. Charles Dickens is losing his mind. He's like, "No, this has to be fake," and he doesn't sit him down, slap him in the face, and go, "Dude, she's a psychic, man. Are you okay with that? Because she's a goddamn psychic."
Well, there's something, isn't there? Because she wouldn't see all that stuff.
Yeah.
But again...
But if you can accept the psychic, why can't you accept aliens from another planet? You know?
Yeah.
I don't
Ghosts
like...
or
This is the thing. What bugs me is the second that aliens explain everything, then it's not ghosts.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. That's actually really much more interesting 19th century British author than ghosts that I've written about, but I know a fiction and can't explain. I can't shift my worldview, but an alien, why not?
Yeah.
he finds out about aliens and he's like, "Well, yeah, now I've got an ending for my book."
Yeah. Look,
Although the guy who's playing him, Simon...
Simon Callow.
Oh my God,
so
he's good.
good.
Very, very good actor.
He is so Charles Dickens, isn't he? What ways do you resemble an implement for cooling oneself?
So good, so good.
That dramatic reading that he does
Yeah.
is exactly the type of performance that I would expect that Charles Dickens would be doing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That really subtle imagine. Not that it was the knob that Scrooge had touched several times
Yeah.
before, but it was Marley's face.
Yes. Oh.
He's in exactly the right show, and he's doing exactly what he should be doing.
Yes,
definitely.
it's really sad because the one thing that you see, particularly British television, is you see some great actors, but they can't get their own show. So they turn up in Midsummer, or they turn up in
they play
Lewis, or they
different
turn up
characters,
in Taggart. And he does that, and yet they deserve their own show because they're so damn good.
I'm sure someone will write a small English village murder mystery show for Simon Callow eventually.
I'll tell you, never go to Midsummer. You will not live there.
Our exports are jam and murder.
Can you export murder?
You can if you get stabbed.
Yeah.
It turns out that Grandmama was a literary groupie, positively dripping with anticipation to see the great man.
Hey, if I was
Dripping is the
Dripping.
phrase that you use there.
Yeah, I love that we had
An
that whole
old
bit.
woman positively dripping.
Positively screaming.
Yeah, don't use the word moist.
The great, great man is Charles Dickens, who is giving a reading in Cardiff that very night. He is approached by theatre manager Dr. Zayas.
Come on, think about this. You've got your tickets to go and see a Doctor Who
And then you die.
convention,
It's
and then
very
you die.
inconvenient.
You would still go if you could get up.
Wouldn't someone else take your tickets?
No, if I could still get up, I'd go.
No, but she's dead. You'd be like, well, Grandmama ain't going to need these, is she?
I was going to say
I
over
would hope
my, over
everyone
my
been mourning too
yeah,
much.
I was going to say over my dead body.
Yes.
Also, she has a ticket all by herself because she's sitting dead in the middle.
Yeah.
And she didn't go with anyone.
Well, she's got no friends.
No, her friends don't know about her addiction to Dickens. She loves the Dickens.
A Dickens diction.
yeah,
There's a
yeah.
joke that a
Nothing worse
Dickens.
than a Dickens.
And
addiction.
Dickensian.
Yeah,
There we go. We got there in the end. Dickens tells the theatre manager he's an old man. Dickens, that is. He isn't insulting the theatre manager. Dickens is
You're
worried.
an old man.
You're an old man.
Thanks for that.
Yeah. And
I hate it when people say that to me.
the theatre manager
Shits me.
turns around and goes, Dr. Zeus, Dr. Zeus.
That's not
I knew you
what.
were going to make that reference.
Dr. Zeus, Dr. Zeus. Oh, Dr. Zeus.
I'm nothing if not enthusiastic to join in. I'm
'Cause
just happy to be
He just has
here.
a ring of hair around his face, and I was like, what is going on with that man? I want to follow that man.
You know, he just didn't even register for me. There you go. He came in, he left.
Yeah, I was very much the same. He was just
Yeah.
there because Dickens needed to complain. Like,
I was writing jokes about him. Okay? Dickens is worried that he's losing his imagination. In a somber, melancholy mood, he heads out to entertain an audience.
And
We've
does
all
a-
been there, guys,
Oh,
haven't we?
haven't
Yeah.
we?
Brisbane comedy scene in a snapshot.
Yeah.
Turns out the Doctor has overshot the mark a little bit. It's 1869 instead of 1860, and instead of Naples, they're in Cardiff. I bet the paper seller was as surprised by the 2 Sicilies ducat that the Doctor gave him instead of the UK 2p he was expecting. Because you would imagine that the Doctor would have brought money for the country he thought he was in, and not the country he is actually in.
But the thing I want to know is he wouldn't buy a chips after the first episode because he had no money, but he obviously does.
Yeah.
What a tight ass.
Who knows what
He
he
would
get-
not
you
buy
know.
just chips. I mean, they're not that expensive.
Look,
How much currency research did you have to go through to find out what the...
Now you know why it took me so long to write this goddamn episode and why I needed your help to write it.
I think now is a good time to interject. At this point,
Oh, just to shut Adam
Yeah.
up.
well, like at this point, I want to talk about Eccleston as the Doctor because he's still finding his feet. We don't get there until the next episode, in my opinion. Where he actually cements who he is as the Doctor. But God, I miss him. Like it is one of the tragedies that
true.
he won't ever talk about this, and that he won't ever like. Clearly, he did not have a good time being the Doctor. But that's impossible to tell from watching him.
Oh, yeah.
Because he looks like he's having a great time. And when you hear about all the back stuff, you're quite surprised
Yeah.
because it doesn't translate to the screen. You're right. I sat there and I thought, wow, I do miss him. I'd love to have seen more of him. But I think he's quite sensitive because we saw a recent tweet of his that
Oh,
yeah.
Beck Tech sort of sent to us, and it was about the Queen, and I forget
Yeah. He was basically just saying stuff against the monarchy, and then somebody was
But
love-
it's
I
not
love that
even
he-
that. He just called her like the
Parasite.
supreme parasite.
in-
and somebody was
ruler
just
or
like,
whatever.
"Oh, careful there, Chris," and then he's just like, "Fuck you."
But for someone who like his main bread and butter, who loves being in these like English dramas, because he's done the big Hollywood thing, he's done the sci-fi, and he always comes back to like these small little British dramas.
Yeah.
He hates a lot of stuff about Britain, doesn't he?
Well, I mean, part of that is because it's all coming out of Britain.
I don't understand the politics of the region. Someone might be able to tell me, but is it when you're in the north, do you feel less connected to the south?
I mean, if you're in the very north and you're in Scotland, then
Well,
yes,
yeah,
definitely.
I understand if you're in Scotland, but you're still in England and you're north.
Yeah.
Do you feel, are you disenfranchised?
I don't know. Let's leave 5 minutes of silence so that our audience can tell us.
That's long enough.
Oh my God, that's interesting. Get on. And this is
Okay,
time for you.
let's keep
Thunder.
going.
This is
Thunder.
also time if you,
Thundercats.
if you
Oh!
excuse me, if you've got nothing else to add to this debate.
No, I got fucking like 4 pages
no,
to do
hang
yet.
on.
Yeah.
Anyone in that 5 minute silence, please get on rate and review if you don't have anything else to add. Just giving us a plug.
It was really good to sort of see the start of the Doctor character in this episode. And this
Yeah.
sort of, like the last one with this, he was scampish, but in this one, he's sort of growing into becoming the Doctor. The anger was a lot more quiet in Eccleston's performance than it was in all of the other ones. And
Yeah,
I think
Tennant was a bit more shouty.
and I think it really came through, particularly in later episodes, but you're starting to see it here. And it makes me so sad to probably never see him.
Not
But
even
he has
in a-
offered to come back for the 100th episode.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll be dead.
But yeah, Eccleston feels like he kind of holds back, and then when people kind of figure stuff out, he's like, "Yeah, I know, right? Huh? Because he does that, and he's like, he just watches Dickens like look at the body, and he's like, "Yeah, no wires."
If he'd stayed on, I think he would have been up there with
I'm
Tennant
happy,
as
but I'm
legendary.
happy with just the one season we got.
Oh, yeah, I'm happy
Yeah.
with that, but I would have liked more.
I'm happy with the one season, and I would like him to come back and do other little things. Don't want him to do like a second season.
Oh, really? Well, I don't now because
No,
he's
no,
gone.
no, of course not.
That would be
oh my
silly.
God, he's gone? Is there something you're not telling us? Charles Dickens is talking about his knockers.
What?
Or to be precise, about Scrooge's knocker that takes the form of Marley's face. It looked like that!
Oh,
sorry,
my
Jimmy.
God.
That's fine.
That's lovely the way you get that blue light out
Yeah,
of your
yeah.
face.
Yeah,
That's-
it was a lot of work.
do a lot of prep for this.
It's really funny, right? Because one, we're in Christmas and we're not doing a Christmas special. Worth mentioning because it's Doctor Who. But also, my first exposure to A Christmas Carol was The Muppets.
Yes.
Yeah.
In that,
There's
you've
a lot of
got
people.
Marley is Slater and Waldorf. And that's always going to be the image that I get, is that the knocker turns into the face of the two guys in the balcony from the Muppets. That's never not going to make me laugh.
As Sneed and Gwyneth are taking the body of Grandmama away, Sneed apparently keeps a rag of ether on hand at all times, so they kidnap Rose because she's seen too much.
Yeah, and give her a feel up.
Oh, that's so uncomfortable in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Me Too era. Like, I'm sorry.
Doesn't date well, does it?
I mean, the argument there is that he is a bad guy. And in case he couldn't pick up that the guy who was mildly inconvenienced by the dead walking around named Sneed was a bad guy,
Yeah.
this is a great way to show that once and for all he's not the guy we should be rooting for.
That's the thing I'm talking about, is when they interrogate him later, he's just like, oh, what could I do? Like, this place is... You know, he's not made out to be this, like, super evil guy. Parts of the episode, I'm like, are we supposed to feel sorry for this monster?
Well, but what he is a normal person. A lot of the times, the people who are the serial killers or the real evil are the most ordinary looking people. But he's not that. He's just a guy who... It's very inconvenient for him, and that's pretty much, that's what he doesn't care.
He's very much in over his head, and
Oh,
he's
God,
not
yeah.
thinking clearly, and he thinks that's the best course of action. Like, oh yeah, like that's something any reasonable person would do in this situation. No, they call him on that. And like, no,
Yeah.
you are being completely unreasonable
Yeah.
and behaving very badly, and
Yeah.
we're going to call you on that.
You know what would have been funny? Would have been if there was a scene where, like, Grandmama or someone inhabited by the Gelth kills, like, a random person, and Sneed's like, oh, now I have to take this body. Who's going to pay for their funeral? You know, like... The Doctor jumps into a nearby carriage and asks it to follow Sneed's hearse. He pulls in the owner of the coach and they head off when the Doctor realizes he's in the coach with... Charles Dickens.
Dickens.
Dun, dun,
Okay.
dun.
Charlie boy.
I think this is the first time it's happened, but it's not the last time that the new season of Doctor Who does this. How does a 900-year-old spaceman know so much about vintage British authors?
Because he loves us.
What else
He
are you going to do in
loves-
900 years?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
specifically British.
You're opening up the same question of how does he always end up in London? You know,
Yeah.
like,
Cardiff.
yeah, or Cardiff, or Sheffield, or
I get it because he's supposed to be well-read, right? But I like to think of myself as reasonably well-read, and I've never read Dickens.
Oh, you're missing. He's actually pretty good.
Oh,
Dickens.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure that he is. I suppose if you've got 900 years to be around, you're going to find some time to read.
I'd probably even find time to get through The Old Man in the Sea, which I've never gotten through yet.
I'd say there's the implication that he probably has like a month where he's like, you know what? I think I'll just read Dickens for the month.
I do love that he is the whole fanboy.
Yes.
I do too. I think that's so great.
The Doctor tells Dickens he's brilliant, and suddenly he's not in the mood to have him thrown out of the carriage.
I do love, because
Ego.
historically Dickens was an egomaniac.
Yeah.
And I do love that you never quite know for sure whether the Doctor is a genuine fan of Charles Dickens or he just knows
The right thing to say.
Yeah, the right thing to say to make
Well, I mean,
sure.
there are a few literary references. Apparently, the reference to the American part of the story
Yes.
he talks about. But he says, "Oh, that American part in this story. What was that? Were you having
Oh,
a
yeah,
bad day
that
or
was a
something?"
bit rubbish,
And
yeah.
apparently, he added that into that. Dickens added that into that story to try and flag bad sales of the book.
Oh,
and
okay.
it didn't do very well. So he was trying to get more Americans to read it by, just add an American side plot. There are a few things when I was researching the episode, I was like, I didn't know that. So
Yeah.
I'd say he's genuinely a fan.
I think he's genuinely a fan, and I think, we can't pick on Doctor Who for always being in London when the Avengers are always in America, or
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Sometimes they're on Asgard.
sometimes they're on Asgard. There's not a whole lot of superheroes assembling in Brisbane that I've seen.
Well, technically they are. They just pretend that it's in America.
New York.
No one goes, let's pop into Brisbane. See
You
what-
can tell, though, it does not look like anywhere in
Yeah.
Oh my
America.
god, can you imagine on the beach in West End, Tony Stark in his very tiny Speedo and the Iron Man helmet?
Oh, yes. Well, how did you know about my fantasies?
Because I've known you long enough to...
And because you keep sending us those photos of Tony Stark in.
Oh, my. Oh, sorry.
It's
we're gonna
actually
have to-
Tony Abbott you're sending me, by the way.
Oh.
I mean, if you're looking for a Tony
At least
in his
he's wearing a
Speedos.
mask.
He would,
this
no, he
time.
would be Iron Age Man. Oh.
I am that out, baby.
Gwyneth tries to brush off Dickens and the Doctor like a pair of Mormons. The gaslight flashes and Dickens exclaims, "What the Shakespeare is going on?"
What the Shakespeare?
A play.
Oh, I just got that
yeah,
joke.
yeah. A
Oh,
play
that's
on-
terrible.
A play on the phrase, "What the Dickens?" Although, funnily enough, the phrase "What the Dickens" doesn't come from the writer Dickens. It was Shakespeare.
Seriously?
Yeah, it was in the Merry Wives of Windsor.
This is what the Dickens. There's amazing things
They
that
think
we
that-
say that came from Shakespeare.
So, but people always assume it's Charles Dickens.
Charles
but
Dickens.
They think that Dickens refers to the devil.
God, that makes... Because I know that Dickens did read Shakespeare and was quite a fan. I imagine that he would have known what the Dickens
Yeah,
is
yeah.
a phrase if it did come
Exactly,
from
yeah.
Shakespeare. And I imagine that he's like, nah, I'm not going to do that. I'm a dickhead, but I'm not that much of a
Yeah.
dickhead.
I'm gonna
Can
say,
you
"What
imagine
the
Charles
Shakespeare?"
Dickens going, "What the Dickens"? Actually,
I would watch...
that might have been a better joke.
This, like, I can imagine a sitcom starring this Charles Dickens called What the Dickens.
What the Dickens? And
I
he just
would
goes,
watch the crap out
I
of
can
that.
see the Carry On movie, Carry On Up the Dickens.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Dickens just goes around going, "Oh, that's not real. No."
Yes.
And someone turns on the TV. He's like, "No, TV. What? Oh, don't know."
What the Dickens?
What's the Shakespeare? The Doctor can hear the creatures in the gas pipes. He also hears Rose screaming, who isn't in the gas pipes. Gwyneth looks all like, "Oh dear, isn't this embarrassing? I've kidnapped your friend. Excuse me."
Is now a good time to talk about the CGI ghosts?
Yeah, look, there was
I just
not...
want to start with, excuse me, Jimmy, but pity the girl. Pity the girl.
Pity the girl.
I can pity you, but I don't have to help you. Oh, sorry, help the girl.
The other thing as well, like the Gelf, again, coming from Red Dwarf, where Gelf is another race
Oh,
of,
yes.
Yes.
of genetically engineered life form, is what it actually sounds like. And they are a number of different creatures throughout the...
Well, I mean, that's the thing, because Red Dwarf never has aliens.
That's right.
Yeah.
They're always where one of the big points in Red Dwarf is that we are alone in the universe.
Yeah.
The Gelf are by default weird blob things. that look like whatever you want them to look like. I couldn't get over that when I was hearing Pity the Gelf. Pity the Gelf.
Well, aren't they the Gelf with
Gelf.
the TH?
Oh, okay.
TH at the end. These ones look like video game characters.
Look,
Especially when they take their final form.
it's Doctor Who's special effects. I thought
Yeah.
they were all right, considering I've seen worse.
Yes.
I've seen giant clams.
They
That's not
They-
a euthanasia.
Yeah, they weren't CGI. I don't know if you know that. They
Oh.
weren't. No.
They weren't.
No, they didn't have computers back then.
It's
They
VR.
did have computers.
I
you
know, I'm joking.
the mid-2000 BBC budget. But God, it was so obvious that they were using CGI in a lot of places.
To be fair, like, it's not the worst CGI I've seen in this season of Doctor Who.
No.
Like,
No,
it's
it's not.
actually pretty good compared to some other episodes
But-
in
Yes.
this season.
The contrast to the physical makeup that they do in this season of Doctor Who, I always go back to the CGI that they use in the first episode with the living plastic. That looks terrible. The living
yeah,
plastic
yeah, yeah.
looks
God, that's-
awful. But Mikey's makeup looks incredible.
Mickey.
Mickey's makeup in
yeah.
that episode
Okay.
looks incredible. If you had have gone with some kind of practical effect, this might have looked better. At the same time, it's the flavor of Doctor Who.
It kind of is, and I used to rail against that all the time. People would go, "Oh, Doctor Who's supposed to be a bit cheesy and blah blah." It is part of its charm,
Yeah.
even as a grown up. Sometimes I go, "That's terrible," but most of the time I go,
Do we agree that perhaps the worst CGI for the entire episode is the cut paste flames on the building at the end?
I was
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
wait until we
No,
got to the flames.
Let's talk about it.
That's
Like, because they could have
terrible.
built a model and set the model,
Set
on,
the
fire,
model on fire.
You know, like
There's so many different ways to do
Yeah.
fire in
Yeah.
Hollywood.
they didn't
that-
have to do that terrible way that they did
They
it.
must
yeah.
have been right at the end of the budget, and they went, "Oh God, how are we going to do this?"
Google image
Yeah.
search,
Yeah.
GIF fire. Well, that'll do.
But thankfully, it's not on screen for very long. In fact, they spend most of the time looking at the characters, where they've obviously put just like a orange wash on them
Yeah.
to make
Yes.
it look like the flames.
Yeah.
And then they cut to the flames, and it's like not a lot of flames there.
Yeah.
I kind of accept that this period, especially
But the explosion's pretty good as he runs out.
I think that's a real explosion, though.
probably from the archives or something.
Oh, yeah.
This is the start of CGI. We're not Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh,
Rocket
yeah.
Raccoon. I am Groot.
I'm Groot.
I am Groot.
I love Groot.
I am Groot. I am Groot. I am Groot. I am Groot.
Is the rest of this episode
Stop
going to be
saying
just...
Yeah, let's
That's
continue.
Stop saying that
That's an
shit about me,
No,
Adam.
that's an online video where Hodor raps against Groot.
Although I'm Groot.
It's oh my god. Anyway,
I know I would buy that rap track as
Let's
well.
continue.
Sorry.
Yes, we should move on. We're running over time.
oh
aren't
yeah, we are.
Oh shit.
Sorry.
You're all
No,
right.
no, it's all right. We'll cut it down.
We'll cut you all out.
Yeah,
Jimmy.
no, fair. I'd do that too.
The Doctor rescues Rose before Grandmama and the young man can double team her to death. That was worth it.
Phrasing!
What?
We're not even doing phrasing anymore.
What?
They're both alive, is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Rose demonstrates who the real Dom in the room is as she interrogates Sneed. That, thank you very
Yes.
much, is not my joke. That's hers.
Yes.
But she is great. She sort of steps up and
Yeah.
All the shit that Rose Tyler gets for being this perfect love interest
Yeah.
for the Doctor, we forget how when they were on and writing her
Yeah.
well, she was real good, and people forget that.
Well, it's easy to forget because half the time she's swanning about after the Doctor.
what I noticed watching it again is there is a funny little relationship there, isn't it? She's kind of a little bit sort of flirty, doe-eyed at him after being angry at him. They're fighting something and then she'll come in and she's got this little flirty thing that I've never noticed before, but it's been interesting watching it again. They're real girl moments where you're kind of a bit doe-eyed
Oh,
with
I
someone.
know. She's flirting with everyone. In Dalek, she's flirting with, Adam.
Dalek.
Yeah,
But
with the
but her
Dalek.
flirting with the Dalek, that fits her character because the woman who raised her. Jackie never met a man she didn't like.
Legit.
She inherited that.
She has a zest for life. Let's put it that way.
Sneed tells her that the house is haunted and his stiffs have been up for about 3 months. If this happens to you, please see a doctor.
I don't know, 3
Ew,
months.
my God.
That sounds like they took some V from True Blood. I think
I Sneed just not being a practical man.
you're really
No,
obsessed with
yeah.
Sneed. I think.
3 months, and you're like, I'll just figure out how to work around this.
Haven't you ever had like an ailment and you were too embarrassed
Yeah.
to go to a doctor?
The dead
You're just like,
rising-
yeah, I'm just going to sit
The
with
dead
it.
rising us needs hemorrhoids.
So
He's like,
what-
no, it's all right.
Well, the Dead Risinger is 3 months 3-month stiffs.
I mean, really, what it is that people who have those sort of embarrassing things, they tend to go on reality television on embarrassing bodies and let the whole world know.
Or Beauty and the Geek.
Or Beauty and the Geek, Jimmy.
Gwyneth offers the Doctor a cup of tea, just how he likes it without getting his order, which is a bloody waste of a psychic mutant superpower if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost as bad as Toad in the first X-Men movie. Well, the psychic ability, I know what tea you like.
I hate asking that question. I'd rather just know what tea people want.
But you could use it for so much more, though.
Well, and I
mean,
can't remember what everyone wants.
The only time Gwyneth is not embarrassed to use the power when she's like, oh, here's your tea.
What's interesting about that is that says that into the Time Lord physiology conversation that's bound to come up
Oh, yes.
a bunch
she
of times.
She doesn't go, Jesus Christ, you've got 2 fucking arms.
Yeah, or like you've lived 12 lives and been through a war.
But
or,
I know how you like your tea.
Yeah, like
Here's a cup of tea with 900 sugars, one for every year of your life.
how good must the Doctor be at suppressing his
He's probably got some
mental
psychic firewalls up.
Yeah, he would have
Hey,
to.
you watch any of Tom Baker's series, you can see he had the mental capacity of...
Slug.
Yeah. No.
I don't know where we were going there.
No. Who is the best in the world? I don't know. Of an Iron Man. The mental capacity
Who's the best in
of
the world?
Grant Kenny.
Anyway, Dickens, who has watched dead bodies walking
No, I
around.
can't say Grant Kenny. Sorry.
We done yet? Or Dickens?
No, I'm still thinking. No. Just
Oh, we might be
annoying.
here a while.
I'm just trying to annoy you now.
Cutter Mike.
I'm just trying to annoy Adam now.
You've been doing that for an hour and 10 minutes.
Oh!
Ba, 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 ba.
Hey, listen, I've been working on this since November. I'm glad that you've only noticed in the last hour.
Oh, this episode?
No,
Really?
No, annoying you.
That's a lot more prep work than I watched the episode and made some notes.
Nikki's been watching it every day since November, being like, someday we'll do this episode.
And I'll have jokes.
When are you going to bring them out? Later? Or?
No.
Children, please.
I forgot them. It's when you're old and you come up with a
You
joke.
need to be mean to me as well.
Okay,
Otherwise,
let's
it just
keep
feels
going.
one-sided. Dickens, who has watched dead bodies walking around and gas creatures flying through the air, insists it's all an illusion. The Doctor agrees and heads off. End of episode.
Yeah.
Very
And I
strange.
thought that was
Yeah.
good. Dickens was a dickhead. And
Oh, and remember how the entire world was taken over by the Gelf?
Oh, gotcha. Well, you're Gelf, aren't you? Pity the Gelf.
I do love the idea of Doctor Who dealing with a skeptic. Like, Doctor Who has basically been around for 900 years. He's seen everything. There's nothing that he will not at least pay lip service to as something he believes.
Oh, he's definitely paid lip service.
Sorry?
That's me kissing Adam.
And
Stop! That's it. I'm muting your mic.
the thing is that the idea that the Doctor has come across something that he doesn't like, again, coming back to how aliens ruined this episode for me, the idea that Dickens, of course, doesn't understand because he's
of course not.
built ghosts out of his imagination and he understands on a conceptual level what a ghost is, and that's a fictional creature to him. Just once I'd like to see the Doctor be wrong about that sort of thing. It's like, wow, it is actually a ghost.
I love the way Matt Smith, a few times he'd go, oh, I don't know what to do. Oh, that's new. I
Yeah.
like that.
Yes.
So what you're saying is Dickens is their Scully, basically.
Yeah, except there's a great band called the Double Clicks, and they
yes.
they have a fantastic song about will they or won't they. My favorite line in any song ever is this line, and this is for you, Laser and Aubrey. They go, you and I are kind of like Mulder and Scully in that you're paranoid, and even when you're right, I sound like the smart one. Which,
I like that.
it's great. I like that idea of like the logical person. It's like this can't possibly be ghosts, or this can't possibly be something I can't understand actually being right in Doctor Who for a change. I feel that's a bit of a wasted opportunity here, but meh.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, yeah,
But I've got a question for you.
Sure.
If the Gelth weren't evil and they needed bodies, what's your moral stance on letting your dead relative wander around with another being in its body?
Sure, I don't care.
What
just
if it's
a
your
body.
mum or your dad or your
that's fine.
wife
Yeah.
or your kid?
That's an odd
It's
thing.
just a body, you know.
It's
I couldn't do it.
I mean-
could not do it. I could not have my child or my father walking around.
You've got attachment to that physical form.
Yeah,
To
absolutely.
me, it's just a body. Like,
I actually
it doesn't mean
think
anything.
do a really good job of addressing that. One of the things that the Doctor says is like, look, there's a small number of you, there's dead bodies everywhere. We'll put you in those, and then we're going to move you somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
that's true.
Then we're going to get you your resources that you need to build someone up. And that's sort of like, again, what I like about the Doctor is he's very much, this is a temporary, for now, patch it together with duct tape solution while we solve the real problem, and we'll get you somewhere else. And I really like that. I actually thought that was a really good way to address, because everyone was upset that was the idea.
That people would be wandering around.
Yeah.
In your.
But the funny thing is, he only brings that up when he's actually talking to the girls.
Yes.
Like when Billy Piper is like, oh, they can't live in the dead. He's not like, it's only a temporary situation. It's gonna be fine. He goes, no, it should be fine. But then later on he's like, no, we'll move you somewhere else. Is that all right?
Yeah.
I like
Billy,
he says
is that all right?
it's a new morality. Get used to it. He's really quite callous.
I have opinions on that too. I think that part of it, when we get to the seance scene, I actually
I can't wait till we get to the part Jimmy has no opinion on.
Yes.
I know, it'll be much easier to cut that part and we'll bring this
kidding,
podcast back
Jimmy.
down to... No.
Jimmy, I'm kidding.
No, that's fine.
So Dickens, who writes about spectres and jack-o'-lanterns, complains that there might be real spectres and jack-o'-lanterns in the world, which would make his writing meaningless. It should be pointed out that one of the many reasons why Dickens was such a famous writer in his own time was that he was one of only a few writers who wrote about the plight of the working class.
Yeah.
Jack-o'-lanterns.
Yes.
Not my first thought of a supernatural creature that I would be concerned exists.
Yeah.
Like it's a very odd creature to choose.
Jack-o'-lantern. Is it of its time? Was it something
maybe,
around
yeah.
that time?
I don't believe that jack-o'-lanterns are actually creatures. I think the jack-o'-lanterns are the pumpkins that are designed to ward spirits away or something like that.
Yeah.
Which exist. It's a very odd phrase for
Yeah, it is strange. I didn't really think about that.
Rose and Gwyneth have some girly gossip time. Rose, a shop girl living in a council estate with her mum, complains about Gwyneth's low wages and asks if she's educated by saying, did you go to school or what?
She's so...
She's so chav.
Yeah, she is really chav in that particular scene.
It's exactly what you want from 2005 Billy Piper. That's exactly what I expect Billy Piper to sound like in 2005.
Yeah. My mate Shireen.
Yeah, she smiles and she tells stories.
Yeah.
That's what she does.
She makes doe eyes.
Next topic is boys, and apparently Gwyneth can use the site to know how many sugars you can have, but hasn't used it to find out if she can get a little sugar from the butcher's boy.
No. Poor Gwyneth.
Aww.
Because she gets nothing.
No.
She dies a virgin, you know it, don't you?
Oh, that is the biggest tragedy of this
that
entire
is the
episode.
biggest
I
tragedy.
really hope that people have watched this episode before listening to the podcast, because we've been spoiling the shit out of it.
Yeah. If they
Spoilers,
haven't, then
she's a
yeah, sorry.
virgin.
Yeah.
If you haven't listened to the episode, please turn this off. Watch the episode
Now that you're most of the way
and
through.
come back.
It'd be a lot faster than listening to this episode.
Play it side by side and just...
We jump around though. Jump around. Gwyneth can't wait to die so she can join her mum and dad.
Yeah.
She is like, she has this smile on her face and she's like, I'm going to join them in paradise. It's like, oh, shit.
But I know people who are alive now who feel like that.
It's...
Who
To be
are
fair-
looking forward to
To be fair,
it.
her life is shit. So.
Yeah. She's got not much else to look forward to, has she?
That's super
Except
dark.
Death.
Super dark Space
Definitely not the
Wizard
Butcher's
TV
Boy.
show.
She mentions Rose's dead dad, and now Rose is the last main character clued in on the adventures of the psychic parlour maid.
Which is a TV show I would
Yes.
watch the shit out of.
Played by Eve Miles, with Charles Dickens as her companion. Oh my god, guys, we've written an episode.
No, I want Sneed in there as well.
Yeah, no, he's
Sneed's dead.
Just feeling people up out the back.
Oh no.
competing
What does he do?
funeral.
If he's given Rose a feel, what's he do to the dead bodies? I mean,
Yeah,
is there some necrophilia going on?
Well,
here?
your
I mean, there
show
is-
is set in the 70s.
Yeah, mine is set during my 20s where you just get felt up all the time.
My favourite thing about this scene is that Gwyneth goes, oh, about your dead dad. And she goes, how did you know about my dead dad? And she tries to cover it up. But then she turns around and she goes full psychic. And
She
she's like,
does.
I see the future. You travel with the TARDIS. It's like, oh, the doctor must have mentioned it.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
big bad wolf.
This is exactly how I want a psychic to interact.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
With the Doctor's companion, because it blew their mind. She panicked. She had a heart attack. Like, it's just like, I cannot handle
Yeah.
people sitting inside big metal birds. That just that's just a thing. Like, of course. And for the first time, at least this series, the first time someone is interacting with the Doctor and is afraid.
Yeah.
And I love that. It's always something that I love about these particular episodes of the Doctor is that he's a scary guy.
Oh, yeah.
The things he sees, the things he does. Oh, definitely.
The situations, and everyone just sort of goes with it. But no, for the first time, at least in this season, people are afraid of the universe that the Doctor presents. And that's amazing to me.
I think it's really good. And this is the first episode where we hear the big bad wolf.
Yes.
So I'm thinking, no, I didn't hear it in the first two. It's the first time you hear it. I remember watching it the first time thinking, why did she say the big bad wolf?
Now they have the seance, and the Doctor goes, "Don't antagonise her. I love a happy medium," and I love Rose's reaction. It's the first time where she's kind of like, "I can't believe you just said that."
How long have you waited to use that joke?
The Doctor is me in that episode.
Yes.
And I love the little stupid grin he gives afterwards.
Yeah.
You know?
That's perfect Eccleston.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's quintessential Eccleston for me.
It's got
Yeah.
that beautiful grin that he just...
It's like, again, when he first showed up in the first episode and he's like, "Nice to meet you, Rose. Run for your life."
Yeah.
And that brilliant, brimming northern smile. It's like, right, I know what you're doing here.
Yeah.
Is there such thing as a northern smile?
There is now.
Is
There-
it different from...
Yeah.
Isn't that where they cut your throat? Oh no, that's a Glasgow smile.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I know the Liverpool kiss is a headbutt.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Rose. One for your life.
Dude, yeah. She
Good headbutt.
Uh,
I shouldn't have headbutted you after I told you to run.
The spirits enter this world through the gap in Gwyneth's teeth.
I love her gap.
Oh my god.
That's not
I
nice.
love her gap too.
Lauren Hutton has had that gap in her teeth, and beautiful woman.
Where the girls used to have bodies, but the time war wrecked them. You've got nice bodies, if you know what I mean.
Okay, this is one of the best moments in the early show. And the reason for this, one, we've got the time war. Mention the time
yes,
war.
yeah.
So we don't know what happened yet. But,
No.
But it puts everything that the Doctor does after this into stark perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Because the Doctor, he's a war criminal. Suddenly, he's come across some refugees that he has caused.
And he feels very responsible.
Exactly. So, of course, he's going to go straight away. And every instinct there is, I've got to help these people. I've put them in this position. And that's a great snapshot into the future of the franchise.
Yeah.
And they don't know where it's going yet because we have no idea what the Time War actually is.
No.
In a technique that I call Joss Whedoning, where they're just planting a seed and they don't know what's going on, but they know it's a hook.
Yeah.
And they know that it's going to... And, of course, the Doctor behaves in the way that he does because he feels so responsible for removing these people of their bodies. Like, it's all his fault, we find out down the line. And I think that's a really, really good use of
I mean,
foreshadowing.
it's actually not. Like, he didn't start the time war.
No, but
He didn't start
the Time War.
It was always running through the
But he-
Probably something
Gallifrey
like
and
that.
No,
Daleks.
but he ended it.
He did end it.
Like, he ended it in the most definitive and thorough way possible by saying, okay, you two go and play in your own dimensions.
Yeah.
And I'll just wander free. And, of course, you've got survivor's guilt, post-traumatic stress, all of this stuff.
Because at this stage, we don't know too much, but he thinks he's killed everybody.
Exactly.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
he definitely thinks he's killed all
Yeah.
the Time Lords, all the Daleks, like
Yeah.
everyone, yeah.
Yeah, so we get that sort of process, and he's like, "Oh my god, we hurt these people that had like."
So we must fix them, give them
Yeah.
dead bodies, get them through.
Exactly, and I think that
He doesn't do his risk assessment. He doesn't do his
No.
due diligence to
No.
work out whether they're good or not.
no,
Gwyneth accepts her fate and asks what she must do to help her angels. The Doctor says they must find the opening of the rift, which they suspect is the morgue.
I love that. Where's the most activity morgue? Can't be the gazebo. I mean, wouldn't that be wonderful if you're just all out in the gazebo?
Yeah. It's also lucky, really, that a psychic girl should turn up at the funeral parlour, the opening of the rift, instead of, I don't know, being sent to the countryside of Wales, where she would have doomed the earth to being overrun by the Gelth.
Well, okay, I have a theory about this.
Yes.
I have a theory about this in that the Gelth aren't very strong, right, when they come out. I think that what has happened is the Gelth have possessed her from the beginning.
Yeah.
Ah,
I
so
think
they've
they
given
needed
her
They've
the-
given her the sight.
I think
Yeah.
anyone who lived there would be.
But she didn't grow up there. She only became
she
the
did.
servant.
She did, yeah. Her parents died.
She was an orphan and Sneed took her in as a servant.
Oh, as a
Yeah.
girl. Oh, I thought she was
Yeah.
saying that it was late. Okay, that doesn't make sense
Yeah.
if it was later on when she was an adult.
No. So she grew up on the rift.
Right,
So
that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for answering that.
You're welcome.
that's all right.
Gwyneth thinks
It
they're-
didn't affect Sneed because he's not in touch with his feminine side.
Gwyneth thinks.
He's in touch with roses. Sorry.
Oh god.
Oh my god.
You beat me to it,
Oh no.
but we were all
Actually,
thinking
Sneed
it.
did.
Gwyneth thinks the Gelth are her angels and it's her destiny to help them, and no one's like, all right, love, calm down a bit.
That's not true. Rose is all right, love.
Calm
down
down
a
a
bit.
bit.
Oh, that's true. All right, well, 2 jokes that are fucked up.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
did
what
you
I-
Did you write a third?
They head down to the morgue.
Ignoring me.
As usual.
They head down to the morgue where Thanos' dead feet are poking out from under the white drapes.
Oh.
Big orange feet. Not orange, fucking purple.
Purple. He's
You ruined my joke!
Oh, I'm sorry. Was the only joke when Nicchia went, oh, shit.
No, that's pretty much all your jokes.
The doctor
but-
tells that. Oh,
Oh,
I'm kidding. He
I
told-
wrote that one.
he told me to be mean to him.
leave that in because I want people to know that she's actually mean to me.
Oh, you asked me to be mean
I know,
to
I
you.
know.
Pity Adam.
Pity the
Pity
Adam.
the Adam.
Pity the Adam. The doctor tells Rose that time is in flux and her time could be rewritten like the snap of his fingers.
okay.
And suddenly half of the population of the universe are dusted out of existence.
Well, I kind of, but I mean, that's the first time I've got to remember that this is the first time some people have seen Doctor Who.
Oh, and there's
it
quite
doesn't
there's
make
quite
sense to me, mind you, but
there's
still.
quite a bit of explanation of time travel in this episode.
You can tell that this was for bringing the new people on board, so that they, they didn't just. This is the Doctor in one episode. You sort of watch it as it comes.
My favourite bit is where Rose is like, but I'm in the past, I haven't been born yet. That doesn't make you invincible.
Yeah.
Did you just call it bros?
bros?
Bros.
Bros.
Yeah,
Bros.
yeah, like the
Bros.
bands.
Oi,
Those
bro.
two
Oi,
boys.
bro. My favourite bit, bro.
I wouldn't have minded this bit if it wasn't for, was it Vesuvius or Krakatoa?
You're thinking about Vesuvius.
Vesuvius, yeah.
Yes.
Where the doctor is like, no, I can't do anything about this
Oh, yes,
because
yeah.
time is fixed. And then you've got Water on Mars,
Yeah.
where he does try and change it and it flips back. And I get it. Early days, they haven't got the rules exactly right yet.
I
but
don't think they've ever had the rules exactly right with
Yeah.
Doctor Who because some things he can change and
Yes.
some things
Yeah.
he can't. So it's what he says in Pompeii is that some things are fixed and some things are in flux. So obviously Rose is in flux.
yes.
The only really weird thing for me, first time I watched it and even this time, is they hold hands and he says, I'm glad I met you. And she says, I'm glad I met you or something. But it's a little too advanced for where they are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's too much. It was too much for me.
Well,
I didn't believe it.
My opinion on that, I didn't believe it either. Again, because I find the whole companion romance thing not great. The reason that I think they went in that direction, this is the first time that we are seeing the Doctor out of his depth.
Yeah.
And he thinks he's going to die.
Oh, yeah.
Like-
he thinks they're both going to die.
He thinks
Yeah.
he's going to die in a dungeon in Cardiff.
Yes.
You
So,
know,
I mean,
you know how funeral parlours have dungeons in them? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, God.
yeah.
And
We've got
I mean-
a dungeon in our house.
Who knows what Sneed's been up to?
I have ideas, but
Oh no! Smell this rag, Jimmy.
Yeah. It just smelled like chloroform.
ugh.
It was a bit too much for me. I have this weird thing, and I think this is from my very strict upbringing from my boarding school days.
No boys.
No, we had boys. I went to a mixed school, but it was really, really strict. Like you had to have an inch of sunlight between you if you sat next to a boy. But holding hands, like, hang on, Adam, holding hands normally.
No.
All right, is like you hold hands with your mum or dad.
Hands with the girl
Is fine. Mum or dad hand holding, I can understand. But they do the interlocky thing, which I think's a bit sexy.
Oh, do they? I didn't
Yeah,
see that.
no, I
thought
saw
they just
that,
held
and I
hands
went,
like that.
no.
Yeah.
You're
No.
showing a bit of shoulder.
They
too.
interlocked.
Yeah. Well,
And
but that's-
I only ever interlocked with boys who I let sit half an inch closer with half an inch of sunlight between them.
But that's my issue with the season is that from the very first episode, it's like they're in love with each other. There's no build up to like, oh, they're getting, you could excuse it if it was just him at the start being like, you're beautiful. Oh, for a human.
Yeah.
But then they're holding hands and being like, I'm so glad I met you. And like,
And I can understand him to a degree because he's got PTSD. So she's really taking advantage of a guy who's
Let's-
a mentally
God.
unstable.
I mean, let's be real. This is a 900-year-old man traveling around alone with a 19-year-old girl.
Yeah, yes.
So let's be careful about who we throw taking advantage of accusations at.
Oh, all right. What, you don't think 19-year-old girl? No, I shouldn't say that.
Oh, God.
Please cut that out.
Okay.
I realise that, but I just think there's just something. I understand he loves her guts and stuff, as in she's gutsy.
God. That's all. That's all.
Yeah, that makes it normal.
Yeah. He's just using it for spare parts.
No, she's gutsy.
I love your guts, love.
Actually, that's what my daughter sends a text to me when she tells me, "Love your guts, Mum," all the time.
Well, she has seen them in the
Well,
room.
she has. She lived in there for
Yeah,
a
she
while.
used to kick the shit out of
I
them.
didn't eat her, like she didn't live in my guts. But
I'm not going to say
It was that
the
awkward
joke I have in
period
my
of
head.
about age 18, 19 where she just kept, look,
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with my life. You're like, I don't know, live up me, all right.
yeah,
I'm not making that joke. That's
I was just upset when she wanted to put a window in.
It was hard to get the air conditioning duct to come out.
Really hard to walk around with an air conditioning tube coming out of your womb, I can tell you.
Oh, but you made it work. You made it work.
That's why she loves my guts.
Wasn't this a Doctor Who podcast at
Yeah,
some point?
I think it is.
We ask ourselves that every week.
Anyway, how many bodies has Sneed been hoarding? Normally you, bury them, get rid of them.
Yeah, what are
He's
they
got a lot of bodies in there.
All right, that's my other thing.
Let the bodies hit the floor, let the bodies hit the floor.
What are they all doing there? Why is he not burying them? What is he?
I don't know.
I see.
Is that all the people that have been killed that he can't find, people to pay for the funeral?
This is before modern medicine, you've got to remember. So
They
there's
still buried
heaps-
bodies.
Yeah, I know, but there's probably an influx more people
maybe they left
dying every week than now.
Maybe they left him out for a few days just to see if they woke up. Because it'd be a bitch to wake up.
But wouldn't you
underground.
expect the families to
Right.
come a knocking and be like, hey, just wanted to see my family member.
Where's my dead friend?
Oh,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
up having tea. He's
Yeah. So I
walked
mean,
around.
keeping them out of the ground so that you don't bury them alive. Great idea.
Yeah.
The entire premise of the episode: dead bodies get up and walk.
Yes, yeah.
So
Yeah, bury him quicker. Sneed, bury him quicker.
Dickens discovers that the Gelth can't survive without gas. Good thing they ended up in a time when houses had gas lighting.
It is a good time. The other thing is, I wonder, would the bodies decay while the Gelth were wandering around in them like death becomes her?
I think they mention at one point that yes, they would. They continue to keep decaying and
well, again, temporary solution.
temporary solution
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I don't know what the real one
But
is.
I think they explain that because they're not very strong, the bodies keep decaying, and I think it's insinuated that if they had their full power, they could keep the bodies alive. The Doctor gives Gwyneth one last rousing pep talk, but she decides to blow herself up instead, holding the Gelth in place.
Well dead.
Well dead, yes.
Which the Doctor doesn't understand. And
Yeah.
as Dickens says, there are more things on heaven and earth.
That's touching on that,
Yeah, that I thought of in your philosophy, Horatio, whatever the actual quote is.
It is interesting that we are
Is this a sidetrack that we're going on?
No,
You're gonna
it is
say, when
actually-
we get there.
Well, it is actually, this is becoming a pattern. It happened last episode as well, and it's going to keep happening. Someone shows up, meets the Doctor, dies. It's going to keep happening, and that's going to be the formula going forward for the rest of the series. And at some point, that does get addressed, right? Where they're like, all your friends are dead because everyone you meet, you just kill. It just makes me so upset that it keeps happening, and particularly in this season it's very bad. This and then Kylie Minogue, and it becomes really difficult to get attached to the really interesting characters like the 1800s psychic,
Because
who,
she's-
like, fascinating character.
Yeah.
Really, really good. Terrified by the Doctor.
I think they want to keep showing that, traveling with the Doctor is dangerous. And they
Yes.
can't kill Rose because Billy Piper's, contracted for the entire season. So they have to have a secondary character who gets killed.
Yeah.
But then they do that in
Practically every
most of the
episode.
episodes, and then suddenly you're like, oh, wait, if you talk to the Doctor in your time period, you're
Yeah.
like, oh, God, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Have you got a companion already? Shit. Shit.
Yeah. I don't want it to be like that. I didn't want Doctor Who to be dark when it first came, and I thought it was, a lot of people dying. And yes, people do die in Doctor Who. It got a little this first season, there were times that were quite dark. However, he had survived a time war, so yeah, I understand
Yeah,
that.
that's true. Dickens asks the Doctor how long his books will last, and the Doctor replies, forever.
Oh,
Failing to mention that school children in the 21st century will be forced to study his works for high school English class. I was given great expectations.
I love Great
I didn't get
Expectations.
Dickens in high school.
What?
Me neither.
No.
Did you get Shakespeare?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
got
I
Shakespeare.
got
Thank God
Shakespeare
for that.
and Dickens.
I did too.
Shakespeare
Okay.
and Dickens.
I went to
Sitting
school
in
when
a
they
tree. K-I-S-S-I-N-G.
First comes marriage.
First
then
comes Hamlet, then comes Great Expectations, then comes a baby and the baby. Great
So what
Expectations.
did
Where does the baby come?
I'll
in
explain
that?
it to you later.
There are more things in heaven.
Than I
need the
dreamt
birds
of
and
in
the
your
bees talk.
philosophy.
Pity the girl.
Rebecca. Pity the girl.
Rose thinks they've changed history, but the Doctor tells him that Dickens dies in 1970, making it sound like it's early in the year. But he actually dies on June the 9th, 1970, after a full day.
1870.
Yep. No. He lives for 100 more years.
Yeah, he was one of my teachers in English. Yeah.
Yeah. He
I'm
ends
old.
up writing Ashes to Ashes, in case you don't know. He dies on June the 9th, 1870, after a full day of working on The Mystery of Edwin Drood. He's still working on the book up until the day he dies.
Edwin Druid, and he never finishes it.
And the blue elementals.
And the
Yeah.
blue elementals.
Because gas is an element now. As the TARDIS disappears...
Actually, he did finish the Mystery of Edwin.
No, he didn't.
Maybe someone else had a go at it.
According to the research I did.
Were there ghosts in it? Like, was it aliens?
I'm trying to remember now.
This is worth Googling. I'm going to Google this when I get
Yeah, I'm
home.
going to have to too.
As the TARDIS disappears in the time and space vortex, Dickens begins to laugh with disbelief as he walks back into the town centre, blessing everyone around him as he goes, presumably because he's lost his mind over the strain of the wonders he has seen.
And he does his Tiny Tim line. God bless us, everyone.
And then he's locked up for insanity.
I thought it was a good way to end. I liked that he got to see that,
Yeah.
but he never gets to actually write about it.
That's it for the episode. So we've
Yeah.
got any final thoughts before we score the episode out of 5?
This is the start of Rose becoming the Rose that she will be in a number of seasons later. The trauma is starting to add up on Rose at this point. I feel, and I think that this is, of course, the only reaction is to become a stone cold badass or break down crying and never leave your...
Yeah.
You could go back and work in a shop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, she can't. It blew up, remember?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, she'll have to sell chips.
I feel like Rose takes a lot of flack as a character because she's gone from being this very chav British young woman into this stone cold badass, which I actually think is great. Like,
It's character growth.
It's character growth, and I think that you can actually draw a line between everything she sees in her first 2 years with the Doctor and how she becomes this stone cold warrior. It's not that difficult for me to believe, and I think that this episode is sort of that seed is being planted a little
Yeah,
more.
absolutely. I mean, she's got character growth. She couldn't have stayed the same flirty chav all the way through. It just wouldn't have worked. It wouldn't have worked.
There's a great meme taking the scene from where Rose has the Metacrisis Doctor with her on the alternate Earth, and Donna rocks up and gives them like a piece of the TARDIS and is like, "There you go, grow your own TARDIS.
Yeah.
This universe is going to need, a Doctor and a Rose, and the expectation is that they're going to grow their own TARDIS and continue traveling, but in a different universe."
Yeah, in a parallel
I
universe.
love that idea. I think,
Me too, and I know that they wanted to do a show called Earth Rose Tyler Defends, and they were going to do it with her in the parallel universe.
Oh, awesome.
But they didn't get the go-ahead for it, but they did for Torchwood. That came after or around
sounds like
the
the name
same
of like a
time.
Japanese anime.
Yeah,
Earth Rose Tyler Defends.
Defender of
Well,
the
let's
Earth.
get into my giant mecha and
But yeah, they cut that scene. They did actually film that scene. They said with the piece of TARDIS. Yeah, I know he wrote it.
Oh, okay.
But they didn't.
Oh,
they
I
either
thought it was just a meme.
No, they either didn't film it or no. You can read his book. They either didn't film it or they cut it out because they said it was just too complicated. Here, get this. You can grow your own TARDIS. Blah blah blah. No, but that was always the intention.
I always thought it was weird that they smiled at the end of the episode. Like, everyone is laughing and cheering.
Yeah.
2 people are dead and a
Yeah.
building exploded.
Yeah.
Like,
Sneed's dead. Gwyneth's dead. We won't miss Sneed.
I think that's for its time period where they're like, well, we can't end on a downer. We've got to be like, everyone's happy.
Oh, it just doesn't feel like a Wednesday, does it?
Chickens turns back up to his wife like, oh, I wasn't expecting you. What happened? Ghosts rose from the dead and 2 people died, so I decided to come home for Christmas.
Yeah, yay.
Oh, do you want to explain something to me, or sure.
It would have been nicer had Gwyneth lived, because then she's supposed to be related to Gwen from Torchwood, but Gwyneth didn't have any children and died a virgin in a doorway.
Maybe she had psychic children.
Yeah. Anyway, we won't go into that. But
How
yeah,
does that work?
You do
I'll
not
draw you a-
want
yeah,
to
I'll draw you
know.
a diagram later on.
that's like Adam and his psychic porn.
I'm
I
doing,
don't
I'm
want
doing
to
it
know
right
how
now.
that
I told you.
Adam, get your mind off me, you filthy thing.
works. Stop that!
All right, let's give the episode a score out of 5, as we always do. Who would like to go first? All right, I'll go first.
Oh
Fine.
God!
Of course.
Well, you,
Couldn't even
always
get
the
my
way.
hand up.
Do you-
No, I want you to go first.
Yeah, it's a fine episode. There's nothing particularly I hate about it, other than Eve Miles' character. There's nothing I particularly love. Oh, and Charles Dickens.
Yeah,
There's nothing I
Simon.
particularly love about this episode. Maybe if it was a better episode with those two characters in, but then obviously we can't do that. It's like run-of-the-mill
Yeah.
Doctor Who. I give it a 3.
Yeah.
3 out of 5, yeah.
I'm exactly with you. You know, it's not something that I went, oh my God, that's the best
Yeah.
episode ever.
I just don't think
I mean,
I'm gonna...
considering it was the 3rd episode of Doctor Who that I had, new episode of Doctor Who that I had seen in 15 odd years, I was pretty excited. But now looking back, yeah, no, it's a 3 for me.
I'm a little bit less excited.
Oh.
I would give it
Okay.
I would give it a 2.
Right.
The reason I would give it a 2, mostly because a lot of stuff just isn't there yet.
Yeah.
Like Eccleston is close, but not exactly
No, it's not
there
exactly
yet.
his Doctor yet.
The story has moments of pure brilliance, but it can't keep that up. It does sort of dip towards stock standard sci-fi instead of it being Doctor Who. It's not a bad episode by any means. Like, it's got some brilliant lines in it. It's really well written. The performances for the most part are just top notch.
Yeah, except for old Sneedy.
Well, no, he's great, right?
Yeah.
He's great because he's a heel. He's definitely a bad guy.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And you know that.
His accent's a little odd.
Yeah, his accent's.
But the overlying arc of this entire season is, we just don't have that much money.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
don't know what we're
We
doing.
have a bit of money, but the BBC doesn't know if this is going to work or not.
They don't know if there's going to be another season. I'm hanging on by my fingernails, just hoping for another season after this.
Even in this day and age, we don't know if there's going to be
No,
another
that's
season.
exactly
you know?
right. Everyone who comes on the podcast, we ask them what would their Time Lord name be. So whatever you like.
Well, this is interesting, right? Because again, one of my favorite Doctor Who characters of all time actually was from the classic days, the Brigadier,
Yes.
who I love as a character.
Me too.
I hadn't thought about this at all.
Thinking music.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
And that's our new theme. I hope you enjoy it.
I would probably, again, when you hear my plug, I think this will make a lot more sense. The Game Master.
Ooh.
One of my big passions is playing role-playing games, and I love running them, and I love doing them for people. And the Doctor Who role-playing game, what I love about that is being able to create a world and being able to walk people through it. And that's actually a very Time Lord ideal. I feel
yeah.
is
Yeah,
the
definitely.
idea of you're not there to interfere, you're not there to cause trouble, you're not even there to stop disaster happening. What
Yeah.
you're there to do is walk people through what's happening right now. So I think the Game Master.
Someone is going to have to show me how to play role-playing games. They weren't around when
Well,
I
Maybe
was...
mean-
Dave.
There is a Doctor Who
Oh,
RPG.
Dave and I have some role-playing games, Beck.
different role-playing games.
There's no dice.
So
When you both dress up as the Doctor and, oh, God.
That is actually something that we should talk about
Yeah,
off air.
definitely.
But
Yeah.
No.
What, Dave's
no,
and my
no, no,
role-playing? I mean, there's videos, but I don't know where they are.
You told me you didn't know I was filming.
And we're back.
And we're back, people. All right.
God, Adam, you kept directing me.
Jimmy, would you like to plug anything? Episode should come out in June.
June? God, I'll be dead by then.
Jesus.
I will still be running my business at that time.
Okay, that's
so
good.
Ooh.
I run a very small business where I will come to your house and with everything that you need to play some role-playing games. You can find me at GM4Hire. That's G for Golf, M for Mike, number 4, hire.com.au. I'm available for weddings, parties, anything. I have a wide variety of games, including Velvet Generation, where you play as Space David Bowie, the classics like Dungeons and Dragons, and the Doctor Who
Oh,
RPG.
you've added it. Oh, fantastic. I can thoroughly recommend Jimmy. He ran a live Dungeons & Dragons show during last year's Briz Funny Fest.
Yeah.
And it was one of the most fun nights that I've ever had, where our wizard got the audience to sing All Star by Smash Mouth.
That was a good show.
Oh, it was insane.
As I've said to you before, I used to watch the guys playing Dungeons and Dragons in the arcade in Toowoomba, but the body odour kept me away. So, but I used to say I really wanted to watch them. And as you got closer, then you'd go, "Oh no, they don't want me."
And yet the body odor of me doesn't keep you away from doing this podcast.
Oh yeah, but I'm in another room. So.
That's why she bought the deodorant.
Yeah. And the peg on my nose. You don't notice the.
Nicchia, do you have anything to plug?
As I say, follow my comedy page, Nicchia Shoot Comedy, and you'll see. I'll tell you when I've got gigs on. Don't get confused. Like some friends of mine wanted to go and see me at Blutz this week, but they got confused and went to Good Chat at Barbara. So, Jake
There's
Smith,
so many-
lucky for you.
So many comedy things around Brisbane.
Well, there's not normally, but there happens to be 2 on a Thursday. So.
And check out Adam O'Sullivan Comedian on Facebook and my website, thenerdinfinite.com.
Oh, and my call out to Beck Tech, who finally came to see me do stand-up the other day. Oh, and when I got off, she went, "It wasn't worth it." So,
I did not.
I mean, she says that after every recording, so it's
I mean, to be fair, we do waste a lot of time.
Yes.
going to have to be edited.
You
She says that after every
you hold
porn
the world
movie I make with
record
her
for
too.
the longest recording.
Yes!
Oh, wow.
Take that, Nick Carr!
We might have to turn this into 2 episodes.
We might.
D4WH is on Facebook. Give a page a like for updates and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at D4WHpod. We'll post questions and polls and would love your input and feedback. Rate and review us on iTunes, recommend us on Facebook, and follow us on Podbean. We are also now available on Spotify and Stitcher. Help us get the word out. Tell your friends about us. And if you see someone on the street wearing a Doctor Who shirt, politely go up to them and suggest our podcast.
Get the word out. Pity the gelf. Until next time, keep searching the skies for the Doctor. Thank you very much, guys.
Pity the girls.
Bye!
Bye.
This has been a production of The Nerd Infinite. And then the sound of dragons spitting fire and stuff. What? Why are you looking at me like that?